Welcome to everyone to our webinar, first webinar of 2026 for us. New year, new close, how real estate finance teams can automate month end with Datarails. Joining us today, we're a partner of Redirect and Josh. So a little bit of the agenda of what we're going to cover today. We'll talk a little bit through the current state of real estate month end close, followed by an introduction of Datarails, the operating system for the real estate CFO. Followed by a demo of the platform and our month-end close solution, and then why and how Redirect enables success for MRI and ERD clients. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end, so please, throughout the webinar, don't be afraid to ask your questions in the chat or the Q&A. Both are open. And on that note, I will let my panelists introduce themselves. Oh, sorry, I skipped ahead. Yeah, Josh, will you kick us off, please?
All right. Well, thanks, Anouk, and welcome everyone. I'm really excited to be here today. My name is Josh Malinoff. I'm a principal at Redirect. I've had the pleasure of working at Redirect for about 20 years now and have also been in this real estate technology space that we focus on for over 30 years. And it's been a really interesting and exciting time to be involved in real estate tech. We get to work with all of the platforms and leading solutions, including Datarails. Just by way of background, Redirect, it helps real estate companies take the most advantage of real estate technology to run their business efficiently and effectively. We partner with the leading platforms such as Yardi, MRI, Appfolio, as well as the best of the PropTech solutions such as Datarails. So great to be here, and everyone enjoy.
Thanks, Josh. That was a great plug. Appreciate that. No. Yeah, so hello everyone, and again, thanks Nick for setting this all up today. So my name is Annette DeYoung, Partner Solutions here at Datarails. A little bit of background, I've been here going on 5 years. Before joining, spent roughly 23 years in finance and accounting. So did that for a very, very long time. Of course, Josh is definitely going to be the expert on real estate because I have not worked in real estate before. So the technical real estate stuff's definitely going to come from Josh. However, finance is finance, regardless of, I think, the systems and that you're using. And so I'm here today to sort of add a little bit of a finance flair with Datarails. So thanks everybody for showing up today. Appreciate your taking your time out of your busy days, I'm sure.
Yeah, very excited for this panel. Very excited for the conversations we're about to have. And on that note, let's get started. So Josh, do you want to talk us through a little bit about the current state of real estate in month-end close specifically?
Absolutely. Let me get the slides going. All right. So thanks again, Anouk and Annette. We're going to talk about where we are today with real estate month-end close and why it's uniquely challenging for real estate companies, more so even than other industries. So there's a number of reasons why the month-end close is complex. So we'll start out with the many sources of data that you're dealing with. So by definition, real estate typically breaks out all of the properties and legal entities into separate sets of books. So there's a lot of different books to deal with. And then within those individual books and financials related to them are lots of different data sources. So such as in the case of real estate, we're going to have a commercial or residential subledger with leasing data, with accounts receivable, billing and collections. You're going to have accounts payable. You're going to typically have many bank accounts. Real estate is notorious because of all those entities and the need for each entity to have more, typically multiple bank accounts. You're going to have a ton of bank reconciliations to deal with. And all this has to come together in order to completely close the books across the different entities and ledgers. The timing of the close is also a bit challenging within real estate. So you can't just say, okay, the general ledger and the financial statements look good, let's go ahead and close. You have to go through a series of tests to do reconciliations between the general ledger and subledger. You need to look at missing charges, accruals, a whole bunch of moving parts that all have to come together to get the close done. And what we find is a lot of real estate companies, because of all this, need to take a while to do the close, and the close gets delayed. So it's this balance between timing, getting it done quickly, and getting it done completely and accurately so that you don't close the books prematurely and have missing information. And then, last but not least, there's some miscellaneous things that don't happen necessarily monthly that you also need to keep on top of, such as in the case of commercial portfolios, CAM or recoveries, reconciliations, billings and adjustments associated with that, um, miscellaneous charges to your tenants. All these things need to happen timely as well as in an organized fashion. And we find a lot of companies that we work with, a lot of our clients have challenges here. So we're going to move on to why a lot of real estate companies, and I would say just about everyone in the finance space, loves to use Excel. And so Excel, by definition, is just so easy and familiar, right? You're not constrained by boundaries that the report has to look exactly the same or that your source system produces it. And many of you probably have become experts on Excel, and you can get things to look exactly like you want and tailor it to your needs. The other major reason people gravitate to Excel is whatever your accounting, property management, asset management system has probably a ton of very useful reports, but we find that most of our clients find those reports are about 90% of what they need. So what they do is they tend to take the output of that report, download it to Excel, and further manipulate it. The other thing that Excel tends to be used heavily for are things like variance explanations, doing reconciliations between the ledgers, the bank recs, and such, adjusting journal entries, all kinds of things like that. And then, of course, Excel gives you a nice place to present that information visually in the way you want, pivot tables, dashboards, and such that you can create reports. We'll talk in a moment about some of the challenges in using Excel in that fashion, but one key point here is that as you start to understand how Datarails approaches month-end close and more broadly approaches how you do your financial reporting within Excel, its real benefit is around the centralization and control of those processes. And that's going to eliminate a lot of the inconsistencies and errors that we typically see. And then I promise you're going to get to see Datarails in just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and just hit one more area, which I briefly touched on, which is there are indeed some challenges and risks, limitations of using Excel and manually going through the month-end close. So first and foremost, you're probably spending a lot of time right now getting ready for the month-end close. You're downloading a bunch of information, you're manipulating it, you're reaching out to a lot of people, and this is happening sort of person by person, group by group. The manual nature of that, and without sort of getting a checklist, reminders, consistency, there's just a lot of chaos, and people are sending a lot of emails we see, and they're trying to get the information they need to get this process done timely. And then probably the most important thing we've observed is if you don't have this process nailed down centrally and automated, you're going to lose that audit trail. You're going to have information that might be in Excel that is inconsistent with what's in your accounting system, your property management system. So it is very important to have a strong audit trail, and that's actually one of Datarail's biggest strengths in this process. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Annette, who's going to show you what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate that. I'm going to share my screen in just a moment here. And we're going to get into a little bit again, obviously with Datarails and everything we can do, but just know that today really is going to be focused more on the month end close. But of course, right, we are an FP&A platform, so we can do it all. And so as Josh said, bringing that data in from your different platforms, whether you're using, Zero or MRI or, any of those other ones, or maybe a couple of them, right? We do have some of our clients who are using different sort of ERPs or different solutions. And so what's important to know is that Datarails can bring all of that data in. We can map that, unify it so that you have a consolidation. I think that's a big one too, is the ability to consolidate all of your buildings, all of your different entities together in one database within Datarails. And so once we have all of that data in, then you can start, number one, yes, absolutely, reporting, visualizations, dashboards, et cetera. As you can see on my sidebar here, we have a lot of different sort of areas of the platform. Today, we are definitely going to be focusing more on that month end close. And what does that look like? Not just for real estate, but really for everybody. Everybody has to do it. And so the ability to do that seamlessly within Datarails, and yes, have that version control, have that sign off. I'm a little old school, so our month end close used to be in binders, and they'd sit in the, on a desk in somebody's office, and you'd have to go back and kind of flip through the paperwork to see the back, the back end and who signed off. We take away all of that manual sort of reconciliations and the manual workflows, and we help you automate it, digitize it, right? Bring it into a platform so that you really do have one place to go. So as an example, this is for, my August, my workflows. I've got my reconciliation where right now I only have one complete. But you can quickly see where, what's been completed, what's overdue, what's maybe pending review. So you can keep track of all of your tasks in one place for month end close. In addition, having those workflow cycles, right? Journal entries, subledger closing, AR, cash and cash equivalents. So whatever it is you need to track, creating those are very quick and easy. I like just to go to my journal entry reviews. All of those workflows can be, of course, very specific to the way you close your books. It's very quick and easy to do, adding a step, very easy. There's no coding, and I think that's super important to know too. You don't have to be IT. You don't have to be super technical to use Datarails. We are a no-code solution. So if I'm looking at like my pre-close preparation and I've got some, looking at maybe some prior period adjustments, closing and reconciling APAR, this is where we can now take those tasks and we can assign them a preparer, a reviewer. We can see what's pending, what's already been approved, or even what's in review. So instead of maybe paperwork being shuffled from office to office, right, we can make sure that all of that is unified in one platform. Having those workflows are going to be, of course, essential for that tracking, for auditing purposes as well, right? Having the ability to have all that. Let's go ahead and go back to my month end close here. Let's look at those reconciliations. This is a huge part of your month end close, is reconciling all of those accounts, looking at your trial balance, right? Does the detail actually match? And so as you'll notice here, if I look at my accounts payable, for instance, happens to be one of those account reconciliations that I need to make sure is done every single month. You'll notice again, that preparer, that reviewer, what are those due dates? And has it been signed off and approved? You'll notice here is my trial balance. It comes in automatically from that connection to, again, whether that's Zero or MRI or whatever platforms that you're using, the ability to connect to that data and have this automatically automated every single month. Even supporting items can be automated. So let's say you have a spreadsheet that you're doing these sort of adjustments in, and I say let's say, but we all know we're using spreadsheets to do this. You can continue to do that. And so if I look at, let's say, my ARAP working paper, which I happen to have, of course, in Excel, I'm bringing in, right? All of this data from my system. It's automated through the data rails sort of plug in. I can refresh this data, bring in new data. I can roll forward from August to September, for instance. And all of these numbers will change accordingly. What I'm looking at here, of course, is creating those reconciling items, right, in Datarails. So here's my AR, I've got my AP. So these are my work papers. When I submit these into Datarails, it also creates a new version of this within the system so that, again, I'm not doing a save as. When I submit, it's automatically going to save this as August of 2025. When I roll forward, it will save it as September, right? So no more having to go back into your, your drives within, folders, et cetera, and doing save as, and we know those naming conventions, underscore today's date, underscore my initials. Just submitting these into Datarails creates version control. You always know how your files, or even in this case, my reconciliations, have changed from month to month or even from user to user. So maybe I'm responsible for AP and maybe Josh is responsible for AR. We can still have the same files. Simply submitting them into the system creates that version control. Once it's in, we just connect it, right? We're going to connect those. So if I look at my settings, for instance, and my supporting documentation, I want to look at those supporting docs. Here is that ARAP working paper. It happens to be one of my supporting documentation. Once that's done and submitted into the system, it automatically does the reconciliation for me. Very quick, very easy to do. And once those reconciliations are done, right, your month end is done. I can also add additional supporting items. So if there is a PDF or maybe I have something that was sent to me via email, I can actually drag and drop supporting items into the system. We're going to keep all of those there with the ability to then, of course, right, access those later. All of that data is here. No more having to search through different drives on your computer or within your organization to find all of that detail. Simply drag and drop those in. As you can see here, I can look at these. I can even do reconciliations by entity. I have a few different ones in here. Say whether you have 3, 30, or 300, right? You can have all of those different reconciliations. And what's nice is that once they're reconciled, they are consolidated, right? So now I get my consolidated reporting. Of course, we can still report out entity over entity, but we want to have that consolidated view. And so having the ability to, of course, reconcile, having tasks associated or assigned with different users and being able to, right, manage all of that is I can see what's been approved. I have 28 items that have already been approved, right? What's in review, and of course, what's pending. And I don't have anything that hasn't been unsent. So I did my job in finance. I actually sent out all the tasks this month, right? So you can quickly see in one screen, right, where everyone is in the process of that month end close. Again, without having to rely on paper, on the old school binder method, right? All of that is going to be, managed within Datarails. Just a small section, of course, of what we have to offer, reporting, budgeting, planning, et cetera. But month end close is really going to be a breeze when you use a solution like Datarails to help manage and automate most of the processes that you're doing at month end close. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. Josh, if you want to add any more commentary to that, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, thanks, Annette. I know for everybody in the webinar, that's a lot of information, and you might, be trying to figure out how this is ultimately going to help my business. So I'll add just a little bit of additional detail. I started my career a long, long time ago, over 30 years ago, in public accounting, and I work specifically in the real estate space as a real estate auditor, working with leading real estate companies. And as Annette alluded to, this month-end close process used to be incredibly manual, and then Excel took over, and emails and SharePoint and a bunch of things happened, and all of a sudden you now have a less paper-heavy month-end close, but you have all kinds of spreadsheets, all kinds of supporting files, typically very disorganized. And so, as Annette was showing you the platform, there are a few things I wanted to highlight. One, the visibility to a centralized dashboard. So you can see for your real estate company that might have hundreds of entities, how you're progressing on one sort of central place to evaluate that. Two, you're going to start to see consistency in the month-end close because you're going to define that series of steps or checklists that is needed, and you're going to define the individuals within your firm that need to perform that, and then also need the reviewers that need to sign off on those items. And when that all starts to come together, the close is complete. So you have this workflow capability that keeps the process moving. If somebody is not getting their piece of the close done timely, and it's going to get escalated. If somebody does not approve the work, it's visible that we need this approved so we can move on. You can also set the sequence of those steps because, as I mentioned earlier, in real estate with subledgers, with different entities, there's a timing aspect, a sequence aspect. One thing needs to happen before the other. You can't always do things in parallel, whereas many other things can be done in parallel. So you can define the workflow between the sequential and the parallel. And then the area that Annette didn't get into today, but I think is the most exciting, is Datarails is an FP&A financial reporting platform that tightly integrates with your source system. So as I mentioned, and maybe Anouk, if you don't mind sharing your screen to the last slide, there are many of you using leading platforms such as Yardi, MRI, Appfolio, and we work closely with all of those solutions. And as many of you know, there's certain aspects of the month-end close that can be performed in the system natively, but then there's a lot of work that needs to happen outside the system. So by working with Datarails in conjunction with your real estate ERP solution or real estate accounting solution, you're getting a couple things. One, what we didn't see today is Datarails integrates with these platforms and allows you to see. You saw very briefly when Annette showed you in Excel, she said, you can refresh this spreadsheet. And what that is actually meaning is that the data that's in Excel is not a copy, a download of what is in your Yardi, MRI, or whatnot. It's connecting to it so that if there's updates happening, adjusting journal entries getting posted, whatever it may be, the information can be updated real time in Excel, and you have the power of Excel to append to that native information. And as Annette showed you, there was a area where you can put in your reconciling details, your variance explanations, whatever it might be. So, envision this, centralized workflow-enabled month-end close combined with real-time connectivity to your underlying accounting and operational data that's needed to support the month-end close. It's incredibly powerful to see it all come together. So here at Redirect, we have been working with real estate companies for a very long time. As mentioned, our specialty is in these business applications that run your real estate organization, the likes of Yardi, MRI, Appfolio as platforms, and then all of the point solutions that enhance those platforms. And Datarails is one of our key partners, and our specialty with Datarails is it brings together, because Datarails works across so many different industries and has an amazing solution for real estate as well, layering in our subject matter expertise of working with hundreds of real estate companies with decades of experience among our team. We can bring the best of both, where we are able to help you to make sure that Datarails is tightly integrated to all your data sources. Datarails already has partnerships with the likes of MRI and other ERP solutions. Where there's additional integration needed, such as with the RD as an example, we can develop that as well and make sure everything is very tightly connected and controlled. And then understanding these underlying platforms and the processes that you have within your real estate company is incredibly helpful to take the most advantage of Datarails. So I'm going to pause there. It's probably more than you wanted, Annette, but hopefully that for everybody provides some additional flavor. And we are very interested in hearing what questions you might have, or if there's any other areas you want to dive into. I think we still have some time.
Yeah. And there was a couple of questions too. So somebody asked when the AI agents were going to launch. They actually launched this week. So yes, so we do have the AI agents for strategy, for reporting, as well as for planning. So yes, those were just released. And another question that was asked was, you already have SAP to work on month-end closing. How would this module help? So without sort of like talking out of school, because I don't know how SAP does that process, I would say the workflows within Datarails, the approval processes, the ability to have not just financial data, but again, having all of that supporting documentation. So maybe you're reconciling, data doesn't come from your ERP, right? It comes from another system. The ability to connect to that system, bring that data in, so to help automate that month-end close, I think is where we definitely shine. We have over 200 integrations into a myriad of different systems out there. But even drag and drop, a vendor sends you an Excel file, right? Drag and drop that into Datarails. We can read that as is, be able to use that data for not just, of course, month-end close, but also for reporting, budgeting, forecasting, et cetera.
A quick questions about AI agents being available in our environment. They will be soon. I guess I will take it back to my team. Keep your eyes peeled. But personally noted, I will make sure that the agents are open very quickly, and happy to see that we have some customers on this call. Exciting.
Yes.
Any other questions? Please feel free to add them in the chat. Oh, here we go. Another one, Annette.
Transaction matching capability. Like, are you talking about through, let's say, like your trial balance and other data sources? If so, yes, we can match those transactions as part of like that month-end close. And so having the ability to just set that up, bring in those transactions, make sure that they're formatted correctly. Yes, we can match those, and of course, right, automatically reconcile, if you will, and match them up to your trial balance. Bank account to the GL, for example. Yeah, so we do have a cash module as well, so we can actually bring in transactional detail from different banks. The ability to categorize them, have a 13-week cash flow forecast, et cetera. So we do have that ability as well.
Whatever your needs are, Datarails has a solution for you.
Pretty much.